Prime Minister Modi, the incurable workaholic, finally took a weekend off in Wuhan, China. He took a boat ride on and a lazy walk along the edge of East Lake. He had a relaxed lunch where they laid out Gujarati table mats and cooked Gujarati delicacies, albeit by Chinese chefs. President Xi, his host, coaxed him to try exotic teas brewed by charming Oriental hostesses, telling him how much he had enjoyed watching Bollywood blockbusters like Dangal and Secret Superstars. It's being whispered that Modi wanted to sue for a ceasefire, at least until the 2019 re-election challenge is behind him. For over 2 years now, Beijing has thrown a tightening lasso around India's chicken neck, prowling the Indian Ocean with an increasingly sophisticated navy, outwitting us in Maldives, Nepal, Sri Lanka and Myanmar, culminating in the battle for Bhutan at Doklam. Plus, of course, an elevated 425 more LAC transgressions by the PLA troops in 2017. If a few more Doklams were to happen, the right wing's carefully nurtured warriors of Twitter and TV jingoism and hate could become a Frankenstein, forcing Modi into a military misadventure which could backfire and cost him the 2019 race. So his was a petition for peace. But what about President Xi? Why did he invest a weekend eating dhokla when he would rather be enjoying his favorite steak? Has China been left on the sidelines of a possible Korean truce? Has China underestimated the potential economic damage that can be caused by a cavalier policy of punitive American tariffs? That certainly seems to be the case, given the Chinese scramble to de-escalate a crippling trade war. And what if India is snagged into that dreaded quad of an America, Japan, Australia, India military axis? Best therefore to park India with a palliative in Wuhan and strain every sinew to tackle the troublesome Mr. Trump. But nobody should deny or discredit the positive spin-off from Wuhan, the mere fact that China deigned to accord India the exalted status of an equal, quote, backbone of the world's multipolarization and economic globalization, unquote. It's a huge win. But then again, beware China's clever ambivalence. Remember what happened immediately after both the countries won freedom from colonial rule in the late 1940s. In the earliest days of Indian independence, relations between the two countries were quite chummy. Prime Minister Nehru, who was infatuated with what he called the other great country of Asia, became one of the first leaders to recognize communist China as a sovereign nation after the 1949 revolution. In fact, the relationship in those days was colloquially characterized as Hindi-Chini Bhai, or Indians and Chinese are brothers. Despite US pressure, Nehru refused to implicate China as the aggressor in the Korean War. And when China overran Tibet in 1950, he essentially accepted Beijing's claims as legitimate. In the 1954 Panchsheel Agreement, India somewhat paradoxically agreed to recognize Tibet as part of China if Beijing would honor Tibet's autonomy. Doubts about China began to plague Nehru by 1956. Around the same time, the Chinese were discovered building a road between Tibet and Xinjiang through India-controlled Aksai Chin territory that soon became appearing on Chinese maps as part of China. Nehru's faith in the Chinese began to falter. The Prime Minister said he didn't trust the Chinese one bit and found them arrogant, devious, hypocritical and thoroughly unreliable. All of it ended in the humiliating 1962 war. I don't mean to be sensational. The chances of war, especially now that India is a nuclear power with an infinitely stronger army, are remote. But one thing remains as true as it was in the 1950s and 60s. China respects only power, and India must buttress its strengths either by itself or through alliances if it wants China to take India seriously. All the feel-good stuff at Wuhan notwithstanding. else the return of the Bhai Bhai brotherly love slogan can be treacherous.